Hello everybody, welcome to Weather and Earth 25. Thanks for tuning in to this prediction video. It is currently December the 9th, 2022. And we're going to be taking a look at the next several weeks, going into January as well, to see how the world might be looking with regards to possible natural events, including natural disasters. We use the combination of numerology and astrology to try to figure out which days are the risky ones to look out for. This is based on, historical dates in the past where we actually can find some patterns. Now real quick, let me go ahead and show you what December 2022 actually looks like. And this is December 2022. This is the astronumerology chart for the month, and you can see the blue and green lines at the bottom, which relate to the numerology and Chinese astrology and tropical zodiac indicators, which give individual points depending on how intense their correlations are to possible natural disasters. The higher the number, the more likely those days have a chance to bring something. But we have to take everything into consideration, so we add all of these together, and we end up with the yellow-orange line at the top. That yellow-orange line is the complete total risk sum of everything, and that's the one that we mainly look at. Any day that scores a level 6 or higher on that yellow-orange line is considered a risk date. So as you can see, December has quite a bit. And we're actually in the middle of entering a risk period right now. Now check this out. The same thing, but now with the dates highlighted. There you can see the different periods in December. Currently we're in the December 9th through the 13th period. And you can see there's quite a few other periods in front of it. Now there's a couple periods that already have passed, but luckily they haven't really been too big, which is thankful. Hopefully the one we're in now stays the same. However, you do notice a circle there around December 12th and 13th on that graph, and you might be wondering how come I did that. The reason I did that is because there's actually a developing weather situation right now that meteorologists have been watching for some time, and this is what we're talking about. It's a potential severe weather outbreak that might happen on December the 13th, or right around that date. And this is a graph by the Storm Prediction Center, which was done on December 8th, showing the day 6 severe weather outlook, which would be December 13th according to this time frame. And you'll see an area shaded at the bottom there in the southern United States with 15% and a 30% even, especially in Louisiana going north into Arkansas. This is a pretty big threat. They rarely issue this kind of percentage that far out in advance, so it's looking like we may have a big severe weather outbreak towards that date. And the storm may end up looking something like this. According to another computer model known as the GFS, this is what the storm could look like on radar on December the 13th around 6 in the afternoon. All that blue stuff to the north side of the storm, covering the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Nebraska, that's snow, and it could be a really big snowstorm, perhaps even a major blizzard. And areas further south have that green line of storms until you get to that magenta color, the pink, hot pink magenta, in that area where we're expecting the big severe weather outbreak. That could be ongoing severe thunderstorms according to this graphic. So, definitely going to bear watching. So when we look at our risk period right here, again, the chart that I made, I think it lines up with this possible event. I mean, the chance is definitely there for a natural disaster. And considering that the risk period is several days long, starting now, lasting into the 13th, anytime we have a longer risk period than just a day or two, we talk about possible weather events that take a few days to manifest, and this severe weather outbreak could be that event. So I would actually say that's scenario number 1 right there for December 9th through the 13th. Other events are possible as well, but the severe weather is maybe the biggest one coming up, and that's why I circled those days there on the chart. Just a heads up, guys. Moving downwards, you can see December 15th and 16th is there. It's a shorter risk period than the one we're in now. So that one definitely favors more sudden events, most likely an earthquake of large magnitude on December the 15th, or around that date. Then we have another risk period, which is December 18th through the 26th, which is actually even stronger than the ones we've seen so far. Judging by how high the yellow-orange line goes up there on the 20th through the 22nd. Once again, it's several risk days back to back, so we could be talking about a longer weather event again. This looks like it could be another weather event, probably a winter storm of some sort. Maybe even more severe weather. We'll have to keep an eye on that as we get closer to those dates, but the potential is there for a severe weather event / winter storm. But also, right around Christmas time, from December 22nd going down to the 23rd, and then shoots back up to the 24th, 25th, you'll notice there's a crazy change going on there. And in fact, the 23rd briefly goes below the level 6 mark actually on the graph, but it's such a short little break that it's better off to, combine those two peaks into one risk period. But seeing that kind of shift in, from extreme risk to like level, 5.5 on the 23rd, and we're right back up again on the 25th. That crazy, up and down energy shift could lead to a sudden event as well. So the chances there for a major earthquake between December 22nd and December 25th definitely bears watching. Then we round out December with a brief pause from the 27th to the 29th, and then we start seeing the risk dates come back up again, December 30th into the 31st. And that will continue into January as well. So let me actually show you January now real quick so you see how this progresses. So let's see, this is January 2023's, numerology, astrology, map. Without the dates superimposed. Now let's go ahead and put the dates over it so we can single out the risk periods easier. And there we go. January 1st starts off as a level 7, and it's a continuation of the December period, so it's actually a 3-day risk period. Weather event, once again being the more likely event here. January 3rd is a very low risk period, but it's by itself, it's a single date. So that is a small chance for a sudden event like an earthquake, but maybe a lower strength earthquake like a magnitude 6. Then we have a nice pause up until January 7th. So at least January looks like it may begin on the quiet side, hopefully. There's not that much going on early January outside of, the first day of the month. But then January 7th through the 11th is a fairly strong risk period, made up of 4 days. So that once again favors weather events above everything. There is a slight chance of an earthquake around January 7th and 8th, but I would mostly vote for a possible, weather event like winter storm, or maybe even a tropical cyclone in the southern hemisphere, because parts of the Indian Ocean and the southern hemisphere, as well as the South Pacific, like around Australia and Vanuatu, Oceania's waters can foster tropical storms. Wouldn't surprise me, we could see one of those around those days as well. Afterward, we get to January 14th, which is by itself. It's a single risk day, so a sudden event appears likely. It's a level 7, so it's actually significant enough where you can say a major earthquake is possible, probably magnitude 7. Moving on, January 18th through the 21st, it's 4 days again, back-to-back of risk dates. More likely to be a weather event. Being January, probably another winter storm, but we can't rule out a severe weather event, flooding event, or a South Pacific tropical cyclone. Earthquake possibilities do exist on the 18th and the 21st because it's at the beginning and at the end of that risk period where we do see a noticeable change in risk from one day to the next, like the 17th to the 18th and the 21st to the 22nd. So January 18 and January 21 are possible earthquake days. But that period in general, it favors weather events above everything else. And the same goes for January 24th and 28th. It's a very similar looking risk period. The chance for a major weather event is there. But we could also look for an earthquake, especially around January 28th, where there's a bigger shift from the 28th to the 29th in risk there. So possible earthquake on the 28th, but most likely another major weather event, January 24th to the 28th. And last but not least, January 30th. It's by itself, it's a single rest date, and it's actually a level 8, so it's pretty strong. Whenever we see something like this, we would, we would forecast a probable major earthquake. So there's a chance for at least a magnitude 7 on January 30th. Other sudden events like a landslide or a major mudslide could also happen though. But that's basically what the Chinese astrology and numerology say about these dates. And for those of you wondering, what made me come to these conclusions, I'll just go ahead and show you guys this. This is the numerology charts that I usually, make to understand these months. This is the one that I made for December 2022. There's different numerology, charts that we can come up with. There's different patterns and numbers. We look for numbers, we look for dates that have a lot of 8s and 9s, for example, or dates that have the 13s, 22s, or any number related to the number 1 or 7. They tend to be the main event bringers. But most of these also share this numerological setup, which involves the numbers 11 and 25. And 1125 numerology is actually the most significant when it comes to, detecting major disaster dates. Throughout history, many great disasters have happened on dates that had a strong, presence of the numbers 11 and 25. Many of those also included the other numbers I mentioned before, but we're looking at this through the lens of 11 and 25. And this is how December 2022 looks. It looks very busy according to numerology. For example, look at December 13th, the date that may have the severe weather outbreak. It's a red date in 1125 numerology because there's a strong presence of those numbers there. There's 10 columns that we look at, and each column is a different sum for the date. The very first one is the complete sum of the date, and the second column is again the whole date, but only using the last 2 numbers of the year, which taps into the 100-year cycle. And then the third column is the month plus day. Fourth column is day number. Fifth column is day plus whole year. Sixth column is day plus 2-digit year. Seventh column is month plus year, whole year. Eighth column is the month plus the 2-digit year. And the ninth and 10th column are simply numbers that come from the month and the year. The month number, which is not a sum, it's just a number, which is 12 in this case. And the sum of the year 2022 is the number 6. So, December 13th in this case, in the second column, it's a solid 11 because the date is 12/13/22. 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 22. 22 is added whole because it's a master number. Equals 29. 29, when you reduce it using numerology, we get 11. So it is an 11. And right after that, we have a hidden 25 if we use the non-standard sum of 12 plus 13, which equals 25, instead of 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3, which would be 7. So 25, you will find it through a non-standard sum, which is what that NS stands for right there. And just that alone already gives us an idea that this date has a pretty strong presence of the number 11 and sum 25. But then the 8th column has a solid 25 for every day this month as well, because it just so happens that 12/22 would be 1 plus 2 plus 22, which equals 25. 22 is added whole once again because it's a master number. And the same goes for a bunch of these dates in December. We have a lot of medium strength days and high strength days relating to this numerology. In other words, the dates in red have a strong presence of 11 and 25 or 25, and the yellow dates have a medium presence of 11 and 25. The other colorful dates there in greens, blues, and blanks, they're just there for show, really. It just makes things more streamlined and easier to, gauge and calibrate between the dates, but in reality, they don't really get merit. We don't really focus on these dates. We mainly look for the yellow dates and the red dates. And that's very important to keep in mind, because now we're going to look at January's 1125 numerology chart. Take a look at it. It is much different than December's. So at least when it comes to numerology, January looks like a better month. We only have a few yellow dates, and no date here merited red. So at most, there's a medium presence of 11 and 25 on dates like January 3rd, January 12th, the 19th, the 21st, and January 30th. A medium presence of these numbers. And that's what gives a lot of these dates its strongest risk. But, there's other things that we look at as well, like Chinese astrology, for example, which I'm not going to get into this video, but Chinese astrology in January, has a pretty good setup for natural disaster in some of those dates, and that's what gives January, some risk, and it's not a completely quiet month. So I know it's a little bit complicated to explain, but that's basically how these months are, set up when it comes to, this stuff. So once again, this is the chart for December. Plain chart with no additions. That's how it looks. And then this is the one for January. Same thing. That's January's month. So you guys can just use these as reference as time goes on. So you guys understand where my predictions come from and how I pick these dates. And try to decipher what each risk period could bring based on the chart alone and, that kind of stuff. So that's it, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and present you the written portion of the predictions so you guys can just read it over. Hope you guys find this useful as always. And I wish you guys in advance, a safe and happy holiday season and a safe and happy start to the new year. Here we go, guys.